because I started that way. You should have gotten a second interview that just said, okay, good.
That's why we put this stuff in there. And that's, you know, if that's all you want, then it'll be cool right there.
Oh, it'll be, you'll be mentioned as really the late, the So,
I mean, I will.
good, how are you doing?
You know, man.
I can see what they got all over the city, I see everything. Even though telling them I read that information. How you got, they gave me a gigantic map. I've been T-funded. I really did my whole.
Oh. But I didn't run out. You know, I went and got my map. I started doing, comparing it, I had never had no reason to try to. Only like live down in those, yeah, but in the areas I didn't. These chairs are kind of. Yeah, you know, when it goes up to the mountain.
Hey, Dwayne, can you, people online, can you hear us? Just want to make sure. Volume.
Well, that's why he's. Doesn't show up signs of it. The meeting down there. This is what he meant. But the budget means so people can hear what their discussions are gonna be. He wants you guys to hear what they're gonna be.
Well.
See.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh,
Can anyone respond? Just let us know you're online. Hello? It's not. Unless there's nobody there.
no, there's one right here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mayor said.
Mike, can you hear?
Everybody here.
Mike.
He's not, he's gonna mute.
Go down there.
He's
Well,
on
he's
mute.
muted, but can he hear us? Is the
Hello?
thing.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Hear us?
Hey, Mike Urich.
I hear him. Okay, we can hear you. It's a little bit faint, but we can hear you.
Thank you.
This now.
No, that didn't even.
Off.
No. I was just, I was somewhere last night. All of our phones went off and they stayed down. All of our phones were buzzing. I was thinking, well, we were in Russia. What is there fire alarm? What's? I asked if shows a picture of the shots of down. He showed a picture of the patient. And he had a question. He showed it into the board. Texted and pictures of the patient. And this don't look like one of them. It may be, there's the ones that Johnson County, that's lodges. Yeah. It doesn't look like none of the ones like. Yeah. That's why specific one has to. It shows it into. It showed outside. These don't, one thing I know here, and it's stop. And then if there's no. Driveway. That's a 50-foot lot.
I don't even know about them.
Yes. If they're only gonna build one. Yeah. My lots, 2 or 3 of them.
I know. One person is something that we gotta get started.
Yeah. Nothing else about plans they're doing, man.
And
Ready to get the meeting started? Is everybody here? Anybody that's not here, speak up. Okay, guys have any questions about the last meeting? Anything you guys have questions on weren't answered? Yeah.
so when we're talking and that word, when we're talking, definitely we're talking about how we could impact what they're doing. But how are they being affected? Do they share any of that budget information with where the cut's gonna be? They share any of that with you after that meeting?
Yeah, we have had some discussions, they haven't shared anything that's really solid. It's just like places where they're looking to cut the budget and stuff and trying to separate the wants from the needs, what we have to fund, what we don't have to fund, and what people think's essential and what's not, so.
My second part of my question is, that doesn't come into effect until next year.
Right,
We're still operating in the 2024 budget, right?
right,
So things are as they are, and we can expect whatever services that were targeted for this year to be.
everything will be the same this year, it won't take effect until next tax year, so everything should remain the same right now, including the raise in taxes you're gonna get this year. So that's, you're not gonna see a reduction in taxes, or you're not gonna see the things hold until next year. What's done this budget year is done this budget year, so if taxes, if we're gonna go up for you, they're gonna go up. So,
I've had people ask me what they're. how that
yeah, there was
impacts them.
confusion about that. So yeah, the budget things are like a year in advance, so. But, there's things we can do to work to try to do things better now and prepare for that. The good thing is, and that's what the mayor asked after that meeting. He said, well, work on the things we're working on, but also, run some of these things through the task force for opinions and things like that to get public input on it. Because, the thing is that boils down to, it affects us, it affects people that live here. So he's asked that you guys, discuss some of that with some of our other things. And I said, well, that adds a lot to our plate. He said, well, that's what we need to do. So that's why I left a little bit of this open to have some of those discussions about that now, because he wants some recommendations about what your vision of what you might want to see cut to save money and your ideas. And then all he could do is make the recommendations, and that decision is made by the administrator. So those are things we can kind of add some of this meeting to that, after we discuss what we had planned about code enforcement stuff. So that's okay.
Yeah, this question for later on,
Sure.
I had just put it on the table though, and it has to do with the finances. My question is, and I get it very succinct here. Study some, had an opportunity to study some Kansas statutes that talk about bills. And what they do on the bills, the little bit that I know is that when a bill is to be passed or it goes before a committee or whatever they pass the bill, then they also, before they pass it, they do some homework. Like, okay, if there's gonna be a cut of $10, what is that going to affect? What is gonna, what department is gonna affect, or whatever else is gonna affect? And do we do that type of stuff here when we cut things? Like, I know that there was something was passed to not charge for development or whatever it is. Bottom line, does the UG do that type of analysis and what impact these cuts and that type of thing have?
I don't know how far out they go with the analysis. Are you talking about the permit things for the residential?
I was thinking
permit
about
things?
permits, but it applies to a lot of things. And so, because I remember with Greg and St. Patrick, here they were talking about not having, needing money in order to get people, and I would imagine, when we pass that kind of legislation, what is it not going to take care of? Nothing in life is free.
Right, yeah, I don't know. And that's one of the things that probably, I don't know, how do you study some of those impacts on things like that? Because the permit thing, we had discussed that, those of you guys who've been here from the beginning, we discussed the reduced price permit for housing, especially down in land bank areas and vacant lots and stuff. And they went ahead, and the standing committee went ahead and done that with the thing, but when we were discussing it, it was for the northeast area. And then they said, well, we didn't really have much participation in that, so that's why they let it expire or lapse. And I didn't know about it. Did you guys know about it? Yeah, that's what I said. It's part of this is the marketing of these programs. We have a lot of good programs, but we're not marketing them. People are not taking advantage of them. And some people, like we discussed Saturday, you can say, oh, well, if you need money for help for your pilot and stuff, there's some other factors there. You have people that don't know about the program. You have people that are too proud to ask and say, I'm not going to go up and ask for money. And then you have people that don't know how to follow through with the process. So that's where we lose people in some of these things. And how do you track that stuff? I don't know how. I guess we figure, it's successful when you see good outcomes coming out of it. If it's not, then we back up and try again or something else.
May I make some suggestions?
Yeah, man.
Looks like what you're saying is the communication process is not thorough or deep enough into the communities that are being served.
Yeah, for the
And
marketing.
so, right, for the marketing. And so, the usual methodologies that I've noticed are either online or the dot talk or the brochure that comes out, the newsletter that comes out. And a lot of people don't take time to do any of that.
Right.
So that's why you're probably missing, I would say, a good 80% of your audience. So they wouldn't know. So what other methodologies or what other communication avenues can we use that would get deeper into the community? Now you have your neighborhood groups, but that's limited. You have your churches, that again, somewhat limited. You have your school system, which I think would be a little bit broader. And working across those territories, I'll put it that way, everybody has their own little silence. I think would help to get the message out further and deeper, and maybe be able to, and then to pair that with the assistance piece for people who don't know how to fill out access or whatever. Maybe there could be a time every quarter where you can have, like you have the job fairs, when you call and say, this is an opportunity for you to get assistance with this program or that program, and just do that on a regular basis. So people become familiar with programs that are offered.
Well, those of you that know me from the time I came from that community policing background. We did the neighborhood outreaches and stuff like that. And with the budget things the way they are now, more and more is going to fall on the neighborhood groups to pick up the slack, which is not being done on the once basis over here. And actually, it works a lot better. And that's why I always tease people when they say, when I talk about the government inefficiency task force. Because sometimes that's when you add the level of bureaucracy of trying to solve a problem is you just create more problems on top of what you're trying to solve. You know, when I was, the department sent me down to Mississippi after Hurricane Katrina, and I noticed you would go by the established nonprofits and Red Cross and the government agencies and FEMA to get assistance. And there would be a line of people a block long standing there for hours waiting for assistance. Then you would have a trailer or a pop-up tent or something else. And you would have a church group or some kind of social organization right there. And they weren't looking at people's IDs. They weren't asking to fill no forms out. They said, "What do you need? Are you hungry? Come in and sit down and eat."
Right.
And so that's, you know, I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble with it. But sometimes the people do way more by accident than the government does on purpose when it comes to helping people out. And so that's where, when we do have these programs like this permit fee waivers and stuff to build houses, I think, you know, I think it is a holding on some of the neighborhood groups and organizations to find that out and to because who knows the people in your neighborhood that needs assistance better than you do. And so it's up to the public to do some of that outreach to say, hey, you know, I've noticed you might need some help with this or whatever, or someone might mention that. So, and that's where the NRC comes in really handy, is because they send out a lot of that information to the registered neighborhood groups. That actually it's like a chain of command or whatever, where the neighborhood groups funnels that information back out to the people in their group. And so you actually contact a lot more people than you do just with the UG newsletter or whatever, because that doesn't get read by everybody. And sometimes you just need to hit the pavement and knock on doors and get the word out. And I think we're gonna have to rely on that more than we did before even. We've only got about a third of the groups now that we had before COVID. We lost probably 3/4 of them, right, Paul?
Pretty close. We have 52 now.
And you know, if I want to know what's going on in Paul's area, I can call Paul up and who lives in his house. He can usually tell me who people live there. And so that's one of the things that we're going to have to start doing, I think. Did go down and did you get my message, Eleanor? I went down and checked on that lot where the Walmart trucks are. Walmart truck junkyard. But the gate was shut, but it wasn't padlocked. It's just got a bungee cord over the gate shut.
That's.
But
I'm gonna check with the police and see.
yeah, I'm gonna see. The problem is, and looking back from a standpoint of when we used to tow cars like that and things, there's a lot of junk there. There's a lot of junk trucks. And I don't know, I think probably they're apprehensive because first, most of our tow companies that we contract with don't tow semi trucks or semi trailers. So that means they would have to probably contract with somebody that tows semi trailers. And the second thing is none of these tow lots that we contract with are going to want to store 20 or 30 semi trailers in the lot. And so they're probably just saying, oh, well, they're there. And if we just leave it there, it's not costing us nothing, but it's definitely a problem and an eyesore there.
Well,
So-
and if this is opportunity to say, to me, it's even more than that because of the people who have had their cars towed because of some crime.
Yeah.
That they committed, not having tags, current tags, not paying, all those types of things. And some of those have been immediate tolls, so some people don't even buy the one.
Right.
But we have an entity here that has found out a way to circumvent that. And is able
yeah.
to, whatever it is that he or she's able to get out of there, it's just,
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out whether somebody's getting paid to store them there, or if they just didn't know where to put them and they just stuck them. But I didn't see any on the street. I drove around in that area and I saw some semis parked down closer to Third Street, down there closer to Juniper Gardens. But, cause I drove around Juniper Gardens. In that area, because after our meeting Saturday, we talked about some of the land bank lots of things. And I should have brought a map. I actually went through and highlighted a map of all the land bank property down in that area, down on Alice, and the city owns complete blocks of land, city blocks that are land bank property. And not all of it's being maintained, unfortunately. But, when you talk about saving money and revenue, one of the things that they did talk about in budget meetings is the expense that the UG pays to keep them lots cut and maintained and the right of way and stuff with private contractors. Now, I remember back in the old days, we used to parks used to hire kids in the summertime and turn them loose with lawnmowers to keep all the lots cut, all that stuff. And so, I don't know how much that costs, but it's got to be cheaper than hiring private contractors to do that, because I'm sure they're not working for what we can hire a high school kid to do that for. And it goes into the thing we wanted to talk about, code enforcement. It is the image of the city too. If we want to attract people to move here and spend money and build houses, we have to change the image. A business owner of mine that moved out of town a few years ago, he came back and actually I was having dinner with him, and he said, I didn't realize how bad the city looked until I drove back in here. And he said, after driving her, because he's been traveling, he said, after driving around, he said, I'm disappointed. So,
it can be resolved, but the problem is, we got so many people that live within the community, they stay right next to the spots. They can cut them, but the city don't want to pay them because they're not licensed. But,
yeah,
the excuse we keep hitting, they're short of help. We don't have the right machinery to do it. That side on, they think you cut everything. And then when they come down and cut it, it looks so bad if they get through because they don't clean up behind it. Their job is hit, miss, and keep going instead of making it look right so they can come back. Even the own city workers, they're not doing what they should be. So how can we ask the community to do what they should, and they're not doing what they're doing. It's everybody's got an excuse, and you get tired of hearing those excuses. I got a fellow right now, he probably could cut 4 or 5 lots, but he wants to get paid. I mean, not to pay the salary to pay the workers, but the thing is, the lot will look better. But he's got to be licensed and bonded. That's, most of the people who live in the community, they don't want to go through there trying to get this, but we can get the city cleaned up if we just stop. But our politics be in it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, people don't get much sympathy from me about that stuff because I cut 2 miles of right of way myself. because the city doesn't do it.
So you get a pat on the back and,
Well, I don't get nothing because I don't ask for nothing.
oh, well, I'm not saying, but
And I drag my trash can every other day 2 miles down that road and pick up trash.
yes.
Because that's my civic duty and that's
Well,
what
when
I,
I do that on 7th Street,
and that's what I learned through community
Yeah.
policing is
Yeah.
the first thing you do is with broken window theory, if your neighborhood has trash, if it's unkept, that's an invitation for crime. The best crime prevention a neighborhood can have is to clean the neighborhood up and cut the grass and make it look presentable. And so I just do it. But that's me. I understand some people want to get paid for that because it is expensive. I have a diesel tractor. It costs me probably $100 a month at least on fuel just to drive back and forth 2 miles of right of way.
When I came on this committee, came on thinking that my voice will be part of trying to answer a solution. Problems we have in the city, mainly the northeast area, I'm talking strictly, the reason I know a lot of this alarm service, I'm all over the city, I'm licensed, insured, bond, the whole 9 yards. So nobody's telling me, I'm seeing the things that I see in the community. I see some of y'all, y'all didn't see me. But the point I'm trying to get at is that I sit up and I listen to hear city council unanimously vote on a law that they want to enforce, that's on the books. And then when you go and you look for a period of time and you watch the resources that's being paid to take care of this responsibility are not doing it. So number one, the taxpayers gonna get back. My money is going to be spent on a resource that I'm not getting. The city council votes on, I would hate to see the book of laws that they have passed that's not being enforced by the resource that we're paying to do the job. So my problem with me being honest here, is there a solution to this? Or are we all just sitting there just talking? Or are we passing this on to somebody, your police department, your animal control? And you get mad when you come home after one of these meetings and you see 2 animal controls at a house that's been complained about and they walk out laughing with the resident. But your manpower is short, but you got 2 people out in one truck doing this, but they don't take care of nothing that they went up there to do. The animals are still running all over the place. I'm a little bit upset because you tell me you're short on manpower, but you got 2 people that hasn't done anything.
Right.
And you want to talk about cutting the budget? I can give you a list of what budgets need to be cut.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Get rid of some of them new trucks, hit they pay, and make them start doing the job. But my whole thing is that we hear talking. The food trucks. I rode by 18th Street, see trash everywhere, and there was a law passed that they have to clean up that city. And they're not doing it. Residents, there's food truck parked out in the residential area. There's commercial trailers parked out on the street. If an emergency truck try to come through an ambulance, God help them if they can get through because they can't. But nobody's enforcing the laws that's being put on the books. It's like they certain areas, and this is certain areas. I'm gonna tell you certain areas. I got residents out west too also, and I don't see none of that going on out there. But down here in the northeast area, it's stuff that we right now get our streets worked on. They get ready to pay to do anything. Signs posted everywhere telling you no parking, so these trucks can come through and they grade up the machines. There's residents sit right there, there's a police car sit right there. Me and my family sit there, see what he gonna do. He didn't do anything. That is a truck parked over there that's in the way of this truck that's trying to grind up the product through our street. Then he got a van sitting over here. She got a vehicle there and a vehicle there. And the police sit right there. There's a supervisor was on my car. We watched it. He pulled left. So these guys are pulling up there. They can't process what they're doing because of these vehicles. That's the total neglect of what you're supposed to be doing. Why are you putting this out to tell people don't park? Then here's a law enforcement. Okay, we got the patrolman, we got the traffic, whatever, all of it. He's a police officer. He did not go out and knock on that door to tell that man, you need to move those vehicles. Instead, he sat there for 15, 20 minutes, and then he drove and went right up the street.
Yeah. Well,
So what are we here for?
but don't think that your voice and why you're here and think that. But because there's things that get done and your voice, your concerns and stuff gets shared around because, because of what people were saying and suggesting and stuff, you know, we do have a food truck ordinance that was changed. And so people get frustrated because, and I get frustrated too, because I'm used to when, you know, responding to a phone, solving it, be done in a day and move on. Where I found out, unfortunately, things around here don't work like that quick. You know, there's a process that goes through, and sometimes the ball gets dropped in that process. But that's what we need to identify those things like you were saying, and they get passed along. You know, Paul and I are both on the law enforcement board. We have discussed these response times. We've discussed the lack of proactivity. You know, when I grew up here, and I know you guys all did too, you couldn't drive down Minnesota Avenue or one of these places and not see a cop running a radar on a motorcycle or doing with some kind of proactivity work, and you sure didn't illegally park because you get a ticket in like 5 minutes. But that's kind of a change in philosophy of the way things get done too, unfortunately. Yeah.
You know, my thing is, I'm seeing that there's no accountability in this unified government because they got all these departments handing in all these big budgets, receiving all this money to run a responsible department. And the department is ran as if there's nobody running it because nobody's doing anything. I worked, I had to supervise, make sure my job was done. I couldn't go in there and do a half a job or say, and then when I come, the supervisor say, oh, we're short staffed. Oh, we don't have enough funds. It was up to her to take the funds and the staff that she paid to make sure they get the job done. Even if we had to double up or put in extra time. I'm sure they probably put in extra time, but the job is not getting done. I'm a landlord in this community. I have a tenant next door to me. I said, I would pray that the house burned down, except was too close to mine. Mine would burn down too. I had a tenant come look at it. They love the house, beautiful house. But that house next door, she's spraying. And that house has been like that for years, with the whole upstairs boarded up. I mean, it's so frustrated because I have, and yesterday, the neighbor on the other side of me, his trees is way, I brought him, I said, look, they all over the top of my house in the gut. I'm gonna hire somebody, I'm gonna cut that tree down, I'm gonna find something, I'm gonna kill that tree. I call them, I said, killing all the trees. But here's about it. Nobody's doing anything. I call code enforcement. I said, look, I paid to have this stuff cut down 3 times. It's my 3rd time. I'm not, this time your tree is gone. You don't care about the tree. You're not doing anything for that tree. That tree is gone. I said, I'm tired of taking care of their trees on my property. And when I call code enforcement, oh, you can cut them. I said, you know how much it costs me to cut them at home? That's what I've been doing. And that's all I can say. And the way the place look, I said, why don't you go in that house and inspect that house? I pay you for inspection, for a license to rent, and never had an inspection. What are we paying code enforcement for? I said, I've been trying to get them to just go in that house. That house should be condemned. They're condemned. That house is not worth anybody living there. I talked to the people who live there. The way she's treating them, it's disgusting. And I'm thinking like, and then you tell code enforcement, they tell you for a whole what? When I cut them the last time, you know what I did? Threw them all over her yard. I told my babies got piled up over there. They left them piled over there for a whole almost 2 months. I called code enforcement. I said, this is ridiculous. At the last home association meeting, somebody said, do we even have a code enforcement? So they get the budget?
Just 6 short.
Yeah, that's what they say every time. But we still giving a big budget to that department.
Okay, now, you guys know what this process has been. We've identified this problem, you know, that we wanted to work on based on partly the commissioners, the administrators survey, pick code enforcement, pick on code enforcement.
We do.
What we did, that's kind of what we identified a few meetings ago. And then we had code enforcement here. We kind of put them on the hot plate. WD did a great job of putting them on the hot seat. That's
Over the meeting, I'm sorry.
no, that's good. sometimes they need to hear that kind of stuff. And we've all voiced at one time or another our opinions about, you know, what we see and what, you know, our complaints, stuff like that. Now, you know, and because WD had brought that, or Victor had brought this up, you know, nothing's getting done. Now is the point have you ever heard of the Sarah model? Problem solving?
Please let me hear this.
This goes back to the old basic community policing. You scan an area, scan, assess, respond, and analyze, or scan, analyze, response, whatever, you got the idea. We've identified a problem. Code enforcement, we've seen things that need to be done. We've learned about this. Now we need to respond of what we think would be suggestions to fix the problem we identify. Then after we do that, we will make suggestions to whether it's changing ordinances, changing policies, or whatever, and they will write that up, send it to a standing committee and decide what ordinance needs to be changed or whatever. And then the last part of Sarah is to assess or whatever, see if what we suggested addresses or affects the problem. And that's what I've been leading you guys to this whole time. Is to do this, because we could sit here every meeting and complain about what goes on in the UG, and because we complain this month, and next month, I guarantee you will have more complaints, because there'll be more things. So we're gonna attack this code enforcement problem doing this way, and so I want you guys to start thinking about what you want done to fix the problem, because you know what the problem is. They know what the problem is. They obviously don't know how to fix it because it's not fixed. So what do we do? Sure.
At what point?
If you have a solution.
I just,
Okay.
at what point do you say
Accountability.
to the person that's over code enforcement, you're gonna have to do a better job. We're giving you the best budget we have. And we need to know what you're going to do with the budget you got. We expect to see this. If your job isn't improving, then you need to evidently get somebody else to do that job if they can't do the job with the best budget you can give them. So that's what.
Well, we gotta do more.
You take the best budget you got and the best people you can get, and you do the best performance you can. And we're not seeing really.
We have to do more than that,
Yeah.
because we can't just say you have to do a better job. We have to tell them what we want done to make that a better job.
Absolutely, this, that's what I'm saying, we need to see this, because the community isn't seeing any results. I mean, how many people do you have
So
coming?
let me give you an example of one thing that I think we need to do first, to make a suggestion to them, or to get things done and resolved is, you know, when Greg was here last time and was talking about, we mentioned something about after hours. He said, oh, well, you know, our guys work 9 to 5 and they have to be in the office and keep the office open. Well, why? Because our policemen don't need an office to go out there and enforce things like that. They can go out there and do enforcement after hours, and they can go back to the office the next day or whatever and fill out whatever paperwork they want, or they can go back to the office that night by themselves, you know, and do their paperwork when there's probably less distractions there. So I think that's a valid thing, is to say, we have a 24-hour, 365-day a year city. We need some of these departments that are accountable 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, because one of the problems that has arose, and I was called about one of the food trucks, was selling beer over the weekend. And they said, well, nobody's here to check. And they sent me a picture of them with the beer in the food truck and stuff. They said, well, we can do it on a weekend because nobody's coming to check them. And the police aren't doing it. So,
Can I add to that story?
sure,
There was a police officer there.
that's
And
what I heard.
they were notified that they were selling beer, and he did absolutely. So we're asking for not just response, but accountability in all of our departments. What we're seeing here is a failure to execute your job, period, all right? It took me a month and a half to get a street light repaired, and I had to go, so I did the 311. I sent an email to the commissioners on the board, BPU. I had personal conversations with some of them. And the response came back that it had been done. I took a picture of the light at night, and it was not done. Fortunately, today, a month and a half later, BPU was out there to fix that street light. But in the meantime, while that light was out, we had a break-in, we had tires slashed, we had gunshot fired, all of that in that dark corridor, because you're giving permission to people who want to do things that are criminal, because they can do it in that environment for lack of lighting, okay? And the ability to ring camera only goes so far. In the dark, you cannot make out.
Right.
So what I'm saying to you is there's this huge gap of time, and we see it constantly in our neighborhood. I did go back and check that property that I talked to Mr. Talking about. Well, in the middle of that property that he said had not been there like that for 10 years is a 30-foot tree. How long does it take a 30-foot tree to grow? Okay. So I'm just saying, we're not getting an execution, we're not getting accountability, we're getting a lot of excuses. You fall back on, you have no money, you have no people, but the people you have, you're not using in a manner that accomplishes the goals that are set for each department. So we shouldn't have to go and tell them that this is part of your responsibility. This is already laid out. This is identified in your job responsibilities. You should be, as the head of that department, making sure that your people, your employees that we pay for, are actually doing the job
To
that you pay for. So we're kind of like past the point where we make recommendations.
Supervisors are not seeing what they're doing.
And say to these people, you have more time to continue to fix them. Okay, so you can have an attitude, right now, because after the George Floyd thing, they cut back on what they do. But the little things are what keeps the community safe. So if you don't do those things, then things start to fall apart.
And you know what I'm saying, if we're not dealing with these department heads, at what point are we saying, expect you to do your job, you got a budget, that's all we can give you. So if you want to say, I can't do my job, I don't have a big enough budget, we come up with a bigger budget, or we say, do the best you can with what you got to do it with. That's what I was taught, you do the best you can with what you got to do it with. Right now, we feel like we're seeing nothing. We're seeing nothing on the animal control, we're seeing nothing on the cleanup over here, we're seeing nothing on the inspection. What are you doing with your funding that we're providing?
Yeah.
Show me what you do, because you're the responsible person to make sure your staff get the work done. We can sit here and talk all day until we get to those department heads and work with them and see what they can provide for the funding that they have and get it done. Because right now, we feel like all over the community, they feel like we're seeing nothing. We can sit here and talk all day. If we're not working with those department heads, letting them know that we expect something for our money. If you can't do what you can't do, show me what you
Well,
can't do.
but the problem with animal,
Find somebody else who can.
yeah, the problem with animal
That's,
control.
nobody wants to get rid of anybody. That's the whole problem. with
Well, yeah,
everybody.
That money is
Too much nepotism, that's what it is.
The problem with animal control is they don't have a place to put all the animals that they would have to pick up if they did. So, I don't know what a solution with that is right now, but let's focus on this code stuff, because what we have to do more than say, you have to do this, or, how do we make them accountable? Does anybody have, how do we make them accountable?
Well, one of the things,
Priorities that you want to identify priorities and the wants versus the needs, okay? So let's say for code enforcement, let's put safety first, all right? So if you do just that, start with safety. For example, if you're driving down any street and you can't see around the corner because of the overgrowth there, that's a safety issue. And I can tell you one right now, 11th and Oak. I've already seen 2 accidents there because you cannot see beyond the overgrowth, okay? So if we drive through the city and you start identifying that's a common problem around the city. So start with things that will impact safety and well-being, all right? Now, there's a house falling in on itself, but it's up on a hill and it's not bothering anybody. It could wait, all right? But the open pit where children walk by every day, that cannot wait. That's a safety issue.
Yeah.
So let's start prioritizing based on the things that actually bring the most value back to our community, all right? If it's trash pickup and you've got people who are doing, who've got a misdemeanor or they got a sign, instead of bringing the money in, give them a Saturday to work picking up trash along I-70, which is filthy. Okay, so we need to start looking at where we can start utilizing our resources properly, and do our logistics properly, and look at what brings the biggest impact to the community.
One of the things that concerns me is we seem to, communications is the biggest problem, it seems. I've lived in I've been a Kansas City, Kansas resident for 40 years. And I can tell you this, in all of those years, no matter which part of the city I've lived in, I have never once received a community update in any way, shape, or form from my commissioner. It seems like they expect me to contact them when something's wrong. It would be nice to get a monthly or quarterly or semi-annually update from our commissioners, a newsletter going out to the residents, sign up for an email or whatever, or a newsletter just coming out. I mean, the UG mail stuff, the BPU mail stuff, that would be nice, because then we could know what's going on with some of the things we're discussing as well. Animal control, different districts have different issues. So we could all be updated within our district of what is going on in our district, and also future projects that are coming up, because we have no knowledge of that. And, it's like you said earlier, there's some things that there's processes for, and we just don't know what the process is to participate in a program. It's just like finding out what's going on in our community. We have no way. We get social media, we get enraged, we get mad, we get happy through that. But if we had something coming solid from our commissioner, from our elected representatives, I think that would help a lot. And it feeds into, like you said, about animal control not having the resources, the semi-trailers, what can we do about that? It gets community at least more involved. You can't say I didn't know it was going on if you're a resident. And if you do have a solution, then you know how to address it. You can get a hold of your commissioner and say, look, here's an idea. So that's just my thought, because it just ties into this whole task force thing.
Possible we can bring all the heads together at one time instead of talking to one, then we talk to the other one, instead of them putting it off on the other one and say, well, we ain't got time.
I don't think we'd have much.
I know, but okay,
I think we'd have a little bit of pushback on that.
I know, but we're looking for a solution. The solution is gonna be at the department heads.
Well, we can't address all the department heads right now, because otherwise we're gonna lose focus on what we want.
Which one should we go after?
Well, we already had great hair,
Right.
and code enforcement is our primary target right now. We have to, because there's departments, the police department, animal control, all these other separate departments. We would just be spinning our wheels and wasting our time. And like Victor said, I don't want to waste my time.
Okay.
I want to see results. To see results, we have to focus. We have to laser focus on what we can solve right now, and when we take care of that, then we can move on to the next one.
What would that be a waste of time? To
Uh,
have
If we try to take too big of a bite of things,
About this information and letting them know
yeah,
what this task force is expecting from them.
Code
Give them an
enforcement and police
opportunity.
department, before we need to talk to them first.
So give them an opportunity to speak to us and let us know what their burdens are. We might,
Well,
be
Greg
expecting
did.
something that,
yeah, they did last week with the code enforcement. Greg said, it's a manpower, it's all the amount of complaints, and like I talked to him later, I said, he says, well, we have so many complaints, we don't have the people to answer them and the time, and it takes time. Well, why do you have so many complaints? You know why?
They don't follow.
I think an answer. Why do they have so many complaints?
Because they don't do them, not things that we should be doing.
Right. If you're out there proactively addressing the problems, if you can't tell me a code enforcement guy doesn't drive around the city and pass weeded lots, junk, things like that, and goes to make their call, and they fill out their paperwork and they go back to the office or whatever. If they're driving past the problem, and that's like I said before, it's like a policeman that's driving down the street, sees a guy in the quick trip with a gun holding on the person, and he keeps going to say, oh, well, they haven't called me to address this problem yet. I'll wait till the alarm goes off. Well, that's what we're having with some of these departments, is they're not proactively going out there and addressing the problems that they're responsible to address. So how do we make them more productive? What do we do? And sometimes that we may have to make their job a little bit easier. So maybe our code enforcement officers are burdened with too many other things that they're given that's taken away from the code enforcement job that they're doing. I know in community policing that happens. They get overburdened with crime, they get overburdened with going to neighborhood meetings, they get overburdened with going doing cleanups and stuff like that. And so but remember, we want to focus on code enforcement right now because that is our target.
Okay,
And we want to see what we can do. We want to see if we can make an impact there.
okay, first I think code enforcement, when they have a person who doesn't read it, they should give it to the police officers, it's out of their hands now. We got one fella, this is a repeat over and over, he has 4 trash cans and will not move them out of the street at all. He's got his dishes in the front yard, he's got a dog in the front yard. They have went out inside this man so many times, but what difference does it make if he won't take his trash cans after they've been dumped and take them, put them on the side? How he will not do it.
Yeah. And they go citing and they fine him, and these people amass huge amount of fines, but the problem is we don't put people in jail for that.
What, but not move your trash can?
Yeah, the code enforcement.
Won't be with police to write a citation.
But code enforcement is like a civil process. It's different than a criminal. It's different than when the police arrest somebody for committing a crime. These are like what's the word? It's a civil.
Well, they had
It's an administrative. It's an administrative citation. It's not a criminal citation.
I understand, but the person doing this has attitude, you can't tell me what to do with my property.
is there
And there's
fines
people like
associated
that.
with it?
There's people like that.
Are there fines associated?
Yeah,
with it?
there's fines, and they
And the
they
fines
amount
end up on their
massive
property
amounts of
tax?
money.
Is that how that works?
It's what?
It ends up on their property tax? At a
Fine.
lien?
Some of the fines do. Some of the fines, like code violations and stuff, if you don't pay them, they put a lien on your property and they amount that. And like Greg said, that's how they finally got rid of Sour Castle, because I'd written citations on that guy when I was in community policing for years. He lived in another state, and he would just laugh because he didn't care. He had bunches of warrants and stuff, and there was no way until they got the law passed where they could start putting liens for them fines against his property. And so that's how they finally got him to get rid of Sour Castle. Of course, if you live in your house till you die, who cares about how many liens you have on your property?
Just happened to say something that we had in our neighborhood. We had a lady that had some physical issues and couldn't take care of her house. It got to the point where the house was full of stuff, if you want to call it that. The front yard, you couldn't even see the house for the bushes, the trees, trash. Go in the backyard, there's 2 cars, bunch of trash and stuff. The lady had mental issues also. She didn't want to leave the house. So she lived in the car. Well, she lived in the car and the engine finally blew up. And she had to get something else out of the cold. So she rented a U-Haul van and stayed in her backyard because codes had put a unfit sticker on her, meant she couldn't be in the house. So she stayed in her U-Haul van. A neighbor went over and did a welfare check on her and she was dead. We had turned it into codes half a dozen times. Community policing half a dozen times. Area on aging. We had went to every resource that we knew in the city. And unfortunately, the lady died. Finally, we get codes out there that did abatement on the trash. I mean, the house is cleaned up now, but unfortunately, the lady's gone. So, and this has been almost 2 full years. So the wheels move slow, way too slow in that process.
Especially when you're talking about these kind of administrative processes, because there's the departments face liabilities for doing some things, and that's why it takes so long to tow cars on private property, because the police or code enforcement would go out there for actually seizing somebody's property. And if things are not done by protocol, then we don't want it, we're responsible. We don't, that's another waste of money. If we make a mistake, it can be an expensive mistake.
I'd like to make a recommendation that we tell the not the code enforcement, the street department or whoever's buying machinery, that they need to form a tree cutting and vegetation department. Because they keep giving us excuse, we don't have manpower or we don't have machines. Well, if you don't have a department to cut trees, how you gonna cut them down if they're in the right of way or the wrong way? What happens to another storm? Here we got all the city workers and each one of them saying, I don't cut trees. Well, what do you do if you don't cut trees? I mean, there was a tree cutting department because my uncle used to work for it. Matter of fact, he was a foreman for it. So I know the city had one. They disbanded it. Act like they didn't need it again. So we need to tell them they need.
I think they contracted it out.
But
I think, isn't that what,
I don't know who they contracted out
I
with.
think, isn't that what Aspen does? That they contract with the city
Well,
to
then-
do that stuff.
Well, then we should be able to point to, we want this
But you're
cut
right,
right here.
it might be,
We need this cut right here. Since you don't know it needs cutting, we need this cut here.
yeah, it might
You
be,
go out, get off the expressway right here, you cannot see the sign that tell you there's a stop sign in front of you because the trees are blocking the lamps.
yeah, it might be more, it might be cheaper if they did have their own equipment department to do that, and then, because some of these private contractors are.
Jeff Fishman sold it all. He had sold all the equipment.
We got two things on the table.
Yeah, Victor, wait a second.
If we said, start somewhere, gotta start somewhere. Sit up talking about it. We want to set it a precedent on, you can't do this. If you go by the house and you see this trailer that's parked out there, it's blocking the street, okay, you go and you let that individual know, you don't just ride back, let him know that trailer can't be there. If you possibly start working, letting people know, the results might be different. But just to ride past these issues and not do anything about it, they're not gonna know the difference.
Yeah.
So, and then too, you mentioned something about animal control. We got no place to put them. So you got a place to put the ducks, you got a place to put the chickens, and you got a place to put the dogs. You said that's what's wrong with animal control, why you're not picking up those different type of animals. And the Board of Commissioners passed a law saying that you cannot have them. So they already told you what your job is, and you just choose not to do it. So We gotta start somewhere to where, we gotta start letting people know, this is not what happened, because I'm gonna tell you, you can say what you want to. I do business out west. It's not out.
Thank you.
Y'all can sit there and tell me if it ain't two cities, I'm telling you, you're lying. It is two cities. It is not
I
out
agree.
west. It can be because of the home association or just that those laws are being forced out there and you're not gonna do it. So why we can't do it in other parts of the city? We can't tell you can't. We need to start trying. And these individuals that we're paying need to understand, like, Mr. Duke, when you bring them here, we need solutions. I'm tired of complaining. Now, I need answers why this is not being done. I got a whole bunch of them say why this is not done. We gotta do something. You can't just keep turning a blind eye on what's going on in one part of the city and saying, okay, we're good with the other part of the city.
Are we gonna talk about the 311 before we get out of here?
I say this for right quick, then I'm gone.
That's not somewhere.
It's hard for me to sit when you're outside of your department and say what you can and can't. You're telling me you can't do the job I need you to do for what I'm paying, right? So if you can't do it for what I'm paying, then I need to find somebody that can do it for what I can afford to pay to do the job I want. I'm paying for this job. You say you can't do it. I need floors. You can't do my floors. I can only afford to pay you $100. You want 500. I can't pay you that. Am I gonna hire you for 500? I'm gonna say, okay, I'll keep it. People in these departments, I'm not really wanting to sit down with them at all because I can't run their department. They can sit here and tell me I don't have enough money like they've been doing and go back and do what they do. I say, I don't have enough help. And you're supposed to accept that, and I'll continue doing what I'm doing. Then you want me back to the table again, so you and I can just keep moving around and around. No, this is what we're willing to accept. You're gonna have to do a better job than what you're doing. That's what we hire you for. That's your responsibility. You should have control of your staff. If you don't have enough staff, you're gonna have to take the staff you're doing and do a better job. Because when time comes for you to get a pay increase, you want a pay increase, and you haven't done anything more than what you did the last time. That's what it did when I was building my house. They came out and they said, we paid you so much each time we come out. And then he came out, he said, you haven't did more work than you did the last time I was here, so you want to draw a payment. So we give these people a raise, and we're still saying, you're not doing your job. We're not satisfied with the job you're doing, but you're entitled to a raise because what? At some point, we're going to have to hold these people accountable. Their department head, not me and you, because we can't do anything. I can't control their pay. I don't write the check, I don't sign the check. I can only deal with their department head and push their department head, the one that's overseeing that job, who knows what's going on, that you're gonna have to do a better job than this, because the community is not the same. At some point, we gotta hold the people accountable, and we gotta move with action, or.
How do you hold them accountable?
Tell them to do a better job. The community is not satisfied. The community is completely saying what they're doing and not doing. If he keeps coming in here every day saying the same thing,
Well,
they're not doing any better. And she's saying the same, and she's saying the same. And all your community has been saying the same thing. Nobody's doing this. But they're telling me what they're not doing.
and that's one of the things we probably might be able to recommend with code enforcement is, and it goes back with 311 kind of when we discussed that a little bit, is when you call 311, it's different than the action center used to be, where you made a complaint and it went down the chain and the result of what happened went back up. Well, now this all the complaints go one way and nothing comes back. So it might be something we can think about to recommend with code enforcement, that when call comes in on a complaint, that a resolution has to come back up as a response to what was done to handle that complaint. And we did that with a lot of departments before, and it can be done. They just don't want to do it because a lot of the time the result that comes back is nothing. And
So the department head are the ones who can hold people accountable. You're not.
but you hold the department heads accountable.
We have to hold them
If you send them,
And they have
the
to hold their
complaint.
employees accountable.
and they are responsible for sending that response back, because the response comes back to whoever they assign it to, comes back to them, and it comes back to wherever we recommend or wherever they say they can,
Now, if you're my boss and I need my job, and you come to me, and you say, Fanny, I got 5 complaints from him, 5 from her, and 5 from her, and I've been getting them for the last 6 months. I wanna know, like, okay. Why
No, I don't-
hasn't
I
this
don't
job
care.
been done?
I don't care where they go back to their
You're,
boss.
you're not gonna get a raise,
Yeah.
or we're gonna have to get somebody else. I mean, these people need their job, like I need my job.
Yeah,
And if you tell me that, I'm gonna find a way to do better. Because I want my job. I know I need my job.
yeah,
And I've been on my job for 20 years, and you think I'm gonna lose my job because I wanna sit in the truck and eat a long lunch and not go to her block and his block? I'm gonna get to doing what I need to be done, because my job is on the line.
But-
And when my evaluation time come for my raise, I don't wanna stay at the same pay. I'm here 8 hours a day. I'm gonna get up and get something done so I can impress you, because you're the boss.
yeah.
So
But,
we're
but
gonna
the-
have to get the
but these-
department heads on them. We
but,
can't.
but these complaints have to come back more than just the department heads. They have to come back to the people that made the complaint. So when you call up and complain, there's a semi truck in front of my house, or there's trash there, that should come back eventually to you. Say, this is what we did to resolve that problem, or this is why we couldn't resolve it. Because it should not die back at the department heads, because if you have a department head that's covering for employees and stuff, it dies right there. And when I talked to the guy that used to manage 311, and that's what he said his complaint was with that, was because he'd been here during the action center too, and he said the results would come back to us, and we would know what was assigned doing what was done. He says now, when people call in the 311, they know where, they just ship the call off, and he says, we never hear any more about it. I said, well, how do you know if it was resolved? He said, well, people keep calling back. And I said, well, how many times do you want them to call back? He said, well, they just keep calling back, and we just keep sending it. And so that ties them up, and it's not really solving anything, and nobody gets the response back.
Well, what's the chain of command? What's the chain of command in all the departments?
I would like to make a suggestion on this 311 call. We need to bring it to the city. This 311 call service is not doing us any good. We should disband that.
I agree.
I don't need for me to call 3 o'clock on Thursday and I get somebody in on the West Coast to tell me, ask me my name, my address, my telephone number. And then when I tell them that, then can you describe where it's at? I said, if you was from Kansas City, you would know where 14th Wyandotte. You would know where 7th Minnesota's at. So what good are you? So she said, yeah, I can see your point. I said, can you tell me how many times I've called for this? She said, you've called 5 times. I said, what department do you send it to? I've sent it to the department that's supposed to do it. I said, you know what? Out of 5 times I've called, no one has called me and said they have rectified the problem. That's the problem right there. They should be calling us back since we've got enough heart to call them and say, hey, this needs to be cleaned up. It looks horrible. But then when it sits on their desk for 5 weeks and you don't hear anything, you wonder, why did I call? What good for me to call? It's like a Saturday, 10 o'clock, some truck was riding down the street, a 5-gallon bucket of paint fell on. So I called 311 on a Saturday and says, we got killed paint on the street. Can you send a supervisor out to get it? She said, supervisor. I said, wait a minute, I'm gonna tell you how this is gonna go. You're gonna take the complaint, you're gonna send it to the city from the West Coast. It's going to sit there until Wednesday for anybody to do it. Wednesday, they come out and picked up the can and left the top. Then they came back Thursday and picked up the top. Paint still on the street. But that's what I'm trying to say. Our city is dead between Friday and
I
Monday.
hear you.
You know what I'm trying to say? We don't have no response at all, nowhere.
So do you think,
I think we need to get rid of 3-1. It's not, we're paying 20, she said 25,000, so it could be more than that. It's not doing us no
so do
good.
you think, and I want everybody, we're getting ready to wrap this up, I want everybody's opinion on this. Do you think one of the keys to making code enforcement, some of these other departments accountable is to treat the 311 process, or kind of address some things through there to make that more responsive, or redo it, or get rid of it, or
Get rid of it.
and then find something like the old action
Old
center.
action center, you call the department head, had the department head call back and say, this is how we
I
gonna get
will, I will see if we can get the guy that manages 311 to come and discuss it with us next month. Is that okay?
That sounds
Is
good.
that agreeable there?
That's good.
And in the meantime,
We love to have being here.
if you're after hours and you have a problem, instead of calling the West Coast, call Deputy.
Call me, I'm gonna find out.
I'm putting that in the minutes.
Put that in the minutes, call me, cause I'm gonna find the answer.
I call and report things for the weeds.
Thank you.
Trash, Carson, and drug. You have to get it to 311, but they get all them little things, and I go straight to code enforcement. And they take it, but they will not tell you when that person, I call back, well, weeds is still 10 feet tall. Well, they can't discuss it with me, it's an open case. It's an open case. But I get right to code enforcement. You get off at 635 in parallel. Now, that is a main street. You look at those 5 houses they took out and the trees. If I lived on a tree, I'd be screaming my
Victory
head
Drive.
at you
How
every
about
day.
Victory Drive?
There is no excuse for that to look like
We
that.
discussed that. haven't we?
Pay all
Where-
the-
where-
And then when you can't walk on their sidewalk, you can't walk down those steps because there's trees growing there that come over. Last year I went down, talked to the
we-
guys.
We've discussed that from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it is.
But we have no tree department, that's our problem.
Well, yeah, but they don't even cut the grass
No,
there.
they don't.
Yeah, I know this has been brought up somewhere else in the last couple of weeks, but I don't remember
Well,
where.
we talked about it, but they're talking about like under Victory Drive, when they were talking about the hillside and all that. This is parallel. You get off of this, you want the chiefs over here, shame on you people. I wouldn't
Well,
walk down Minnesota Avenue at night.
and the mayor said that they're gonna be having budget discussions down in the lobby in the commission chambers. So,
They're doing it right now.
yeah, you guys are all welcome to go. He wants you all to come down there and listen.
I did this WD
Yes,
2 minutes. I sent you, email today.
Oh, you did?
I Eric, I just wanted to. we're gonna do this. I
thought you knew that, something to say, young man.
If this makes any sense, we'll do this task.
Hey, listen, what's more than you just, you legal, do we have any?
I think that
Do you have anything to say about it?
I am not here to
there is
advise.
one task force that changed this, the economic.
It's a public meeting, you have to
Yeah,
make the legal typically.
small.
Yeah, take care, make sure you have like somebody about the leaders.
Yeah, he just wants to hear that.
They to do nothing, fire them out.
It's all. So it's.
You know, you guys come up with the ordinance and stuff.
There is
and write
accountability that they're talking
Yeah.
about.
We need to get rid of it.
Well, as,
Waste the taxpayers' money and don't do nothing for you.
process. So.
I'm motivated behind that, Irene.
Well,
Because
but
you want
but aren't you-
development, you want revenue, you want. all
But
that,
no,
but
that's
we're
what I'm
talking
saying,
about
but you're, if you
quality of
pick a
living in
focus,
the city.
but like he said, so if you pick that focus, it's a limited number of folks, and then. That's what I'm just thinking that they're saying will make it work.
Any small, this one.
Like,
You have a low, you have a.
We'll get it done there.
Oh, do you? What thing? Then they have a- or-
For getting this.
Just forward. Because I actually have a placeholder right here.
Some people is for you. Give them stay in the city. If you stay over there, it's about.
We need it. We need it. How we see that must look like.
That's what they match. If you find tip service, that's what they match in is finding people. They can be, and they find.
Like turn.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
And it's gotten to the point where, we're gonna, I go back to what Melissa Bynum said, you refuse to live like this anymore. It's getting old, you cannot drive down the street